I'm Randall Orndorff, a geologist with the U.S. Geological Survey. Lately, there have been quite a few sinkholes that have developed across the United States. One recently has taken a life. I'd like to take a moment just to talk about what sinkholes are and where they occur. Well, sinkholes generally occur in what we call karst terrains. And karst terrains are basically areas that are underlain by soluble rock. Rocks that can dissolve, like limestone, gypsum, and salt. Rainwater naturally is acidic. When it gets underground into these rocks, over long periods of time, hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands of years, the rocks will dissolve and will leave caverns and voids underground. As these voids grow upward, the soil on top can no longer sustain itself, and we get these catastrophic collapses. Now, about 20% of the United States is underlain by this karst terrain. Areas such as Florida, almost the entire state is under limestone, but there are many other areas. Just about every state has some sort of soluble rock. Now, karst sinkholes, there's also other types of sinkholes that are man-induced. Cities, urban areas are underlain by pipelines, by sewer lines, water mains, and things like that are basically man-made caves. So anytime you have a void underground, just like the natural cave system, you have the potential for collapse. As our aging infrastructure deteriorates, we're finding that cracks in these sewer lines and water mains will cause the soil to leak down into those, also causing collapse. Now, at the U.S. Geological Survey, one of our big tools in trying to understand where sinkholes occur are geologic maps. By mapping the geology of an area, we can determine where the limestones, the salt or gypsum, these soluble rocks are, both at the surface and the subsurface. And that's the first step in understanding what areas are at risk. And risk is the first thing we need to look at before we can actually look at individual areas. For more information on sinkholes, on geologic maps, and other natural hazards, please visit usgs.gov.
Watch out for that dust. That could be asbestos and shit.
I work for Reuters News Service. I've occasionally worked for she is. Okay.
A 17-foot deep sinkhole opened up in Holyoke right next to the St. Patrick's Parade route. Contractors with United Water told 22 News a 54-inch sewer pipe broke, causing the sidewalk to cave in. The ground was soft due to recent rain. The area around the sinkhole, which is located near the corner of Resnick Boulevard and Beach Street, needs to be stabilized before crews can begin work. The incident comes at a very inconvenient time for city workers as crews are busy making preparations for this weekend's St. Patrick's Parade and the road race.
I don't know if they're going to get that fixed by Sunday. I don't think so.
Well, the hole is covered for now and should no longer pose any danger to the public or the parade.
Milwaukee police are on the scene of a sinkhole that's developing on Milwaukee's south side. It's on South 12th Street between Cleveland and Harrison. And as you can see, it's about the size of a car parking space. They've got orange cones protecting it until the Department of Public Works can get here and take care of it and repair it. We're told by our crews on the ground there that it's about a foot deep that has sunk so far. Above the scene in News Chopper 12, Matt Salemi for WISN.com.
Golfer is lucky to be alive today after being swallowed by a sinkhole. I mean, we have a sinkhole story like every couple of days, right? He was in the middle of a golf match and he literally disappeared. 43-year-old Mark Mihal fell 18 feet. 18 is the magic number, I guess, on the golf course, right? And it just gave way beneath him. His only injury was a dislocated shoulder. It really could have been much worse for this guy.
It was dark. Finally, my eyes got used to the light. I looked around. It was sort of like a cave, you know. There was room in there. It wasn't confined, which was nice. But looking down, it looked like it was going to go down further. You know, it looked like I wasn't at the bottom.
It's like a nightmare that you're falling and falling. This guy lived it, as we've seen other people do in the past few weeks, right? Fox St. Louis reporter Betsy Bruce has an in-depth look at how this happened.
One golfer thought his friend Mark Myhall had stumbled and fallen down the hill. He vanished so quickly. A second, just 15 feet away, turned and saw no sign of his friend. It was almost as if the earth had swallowed Mark and closed over the hole.
The tear, and it looked like carpet, but that was I guess the zoysia.
Zoysia grass.
And so he started yelling. He heard Mark in there. He goes, he's down in this hole.
Ed Magaletta became the hero of the day, but he credits divine intervention for the fact he had left a flashlight in his pocket from the night before. Golf course owner Russ Nobby brought a 12-foot ladder to the scene, and that's what Magaletta climbed down.
They were there so quick that it was amazing. And maybe we should have waited for the first responders, but I didn't think we had a choice. I think we wanted to get him out of there because of the uncertainty of what a sinkhole is all about. I don't think it wasn't a life or death situation at that point. It got a little tenuous when I was down there by myself, and I was like, I got out of that hole so quick. I didn't wait for the rope to come down.
Ann Breyer's maintenance staff widened out the sinkhole to be sure nobody else would fall in on a weak spot.
It would have collapsed, presumably in the next rain. This was just really bad luck. And I dare say you all wouldn't be here if there hadn't been a person in there. These things happen. Sinkholes form in farmers' fields around here several times a year. There's no press conference.
Well, Ted Corliss is a sinkhole trial attorney. Who knew that such a thing existed, right? He's golfed on this same course. Ted, welcome. Good to have you here today. You get a lot of these cases, and how do they work out? Do people get compensation for these?
Well, here in Florida, we have to deal with all kinds of weather, everything from hurricanes to sinkholes to waves to anything. And so there's a lot of disputes between insurance companies and homeowners about issues like this. That's why we have to deal with them so frequently.
Yeah. You've played on this course. Do you think this man has a case against the course? Who would be sued? The course, I would assume.
Well, actually, what we've come to understand is we believe that because the sinkhole opened up there, that they may have selected a new pope. That's how we're interpreting it.
That's good.
Or the other suggestion might have been that Al Gore actually was responsible for the creation of the sinkhole. I don't know. Most of the time when we're dealing with these issues, they have to deal with the, when sinkholes like this cause traumatic damage to homes. And when there are disputes between homeowners and insurance companies over whether or not there are sinkholes or what the kind of damage is or how they would go about repairing them.
Well, since you're telling jokes, there's a hole in one, but there was definitely one in the hole in this case, right? On the golf course.
Right.
Chills up your spine. Those men, they're staring into this deep sinkhole that opened up right under their friend as he was playing golf. It swallowed him up and led to a risky rescue. The dramatic drop happened on a golf course in Waterloo, Illinois. This story is the talk of St. Louis today, and we talked exclusively with the man who survived this scare. News Channel 5's Talia Kaplan tracked him down today. She's live at the Ann Breyer golf course. Talia?
And Kay, Mark Myhall is an avid golfer. He says he loves it here. He comes here often. He was here on Friday golfing with friends for the first time this year. They were in the middle of the game when things took a dramatic turn.
That was the initial thought. I was like, man, this is it.
It sure wasn't the hole-in-one Mark Myhall of Creve Coeur was expecting.
Well, I was just in shock.
This husband and father of two was playing golf Friday with friends at Ann Breyer Golf Course. They were on the 14th hole in the middle of the fairway when Myhall noticed something unusual.
The fairway had lots of moguls and mounds in it, and I saw this depression, and I was like, well, that's interesting, so I went over to check it out.
The next thing he knew, he was in the ground. Myhall fell about 15 feet into the sinkhole, landing in a big pile of mud.
It was just darkness down there, so, I was like, someone get me out of here now.
He says he immediately went into survival mode.
Thank God I was playing with a foursome. I was probably 15 feet away from my buddy Mike, who we were talking about it, and then all of a sudden I was gone. He heard moaning, he said, and he looked back, and I just disappeared.
His friends called the clubhouse asking for a ladder and rope. They all knew time was of the essence. So one of his friends, Ed Magaletta, jumped in himself.
And I knew he couldn't get up the ladder by himself. And the longer he stayed down there, the worse it was. So I felt that somebody had to do it.
Magaletta put a splint around his arm and tried to do whatever he could to help his friend.
They put a rope around me, pulled me out from the top, and then he helped me, he pushed me from the bottom.
20 minutes later, Myhall was back on solid land.
My arm was killing me, but I was just happy to be on ground. I mean, see the sunlight and yeah, thankful that I wasn't hurt worse.
We are sorry this happened here. It is an extremely unfortunate event, an event we feel is an act of nature. You know, we don't feel there's any way we could have foreseen this happening.
Do you think you'll ever golf again?
I hope so. I love it. You know, I probably will. I don't know if I can play that course or that hole again. I mean, it's so freaky that you know, we're still amazed. We can't believe that just happened.
Myhall now has a dislocated shoulder. He had an MRI today and he's waiting to find out if he needs to get surgery. Now this golf course is open to the public with the exception of hole number 14. The general manager here says it's safe and geologists say the odds of something like this happening here again are very slim. Live in Waterloo, Talia Kaplan, News Channel 5.
It's just a few short steps down to an incredible underground site.
And this was the original cavity that eventually collapsed in.
A massive sinkhole carved out of solid limestone by drops of water. So this is what a sinkhole looks like from the inside.
From the inside, yes, before you fill it up with sand and dirt.
And if someone were living right on top of this, they'd be at risk.
Yes.
Geologist Jerry Black says Sunshine State homeowners might be surprised to find out just how common these are. What are the chances of someone having a house in Central Florida and living on top of something like this?
Very good. Not probably as close to the surface as this, but you definitely have cavities of this size all over the state of Florida.
Fossils found in this sinkhole show it's been around since the Ice Age, but no different, Black says, than the sinkholes we see opening up today. These are just a few of his pictures. The one thing they all have in common is water.
Rainwater is going to turn into groundwater, and that's what's naturally acidic. That's the device that dissolves the limestone and will help create these cavities.
What is unusual about this sinkhole? It's easy to get inside. Called the Devil's Den, it's open to tourists for viewing and diving. Dive instructor Prince Johnson takes me under for a look. I find that this seemingly placid pool of water is anything but.
The water has gone down considerably because of the aquifer, but it has also risen when we've had hurricanes and tropical storms. It has risen another 45 feet.
45 feet?
45 feet.
So the water's constantly going up and down here?
Up and down.
Depending on drought or hurricane?
Correct.
Down here, it's easy to see how fluctuating groundwater has silently wreaked havoc. I passed by limestone boulders as big as cars sitting on the bottom. And these same forces are still at work, compounded by the demand for fresh water.
It is progressively dropping yearly, and that's basically over the whole state of Florida. The aquifer is getting lower and lower.
Perhaps most striking to me, how appearances of this sinkhole are so misleading. A single beam of sunlight reveals the cavern is even bigger below the waterline, with tunnels and passageways carved deep into the darkness.
It's incredible to see like that, David. I mean, do you know like how deep that one is, and also how many there are in Florida?
Well, there are thousands across the state of Florida, literally thousands that pop up every single year. The state keeps a loose track of them. People call in to report them when they happen. But think about this. We were talking about how deceptive these things are when you look at their size. There's much more to this cavern below the water level than there is actually up here where I'm standing. But look up here up top. The hole that opened up when this sinkhole was formed, you see the size of that. Now you see how deceptively large this whole cavern is underneath it. So when you see a sinkhole opening up on the surface, there's so much more going on down below that we never see.
पोखरा नजिकैको गाउँ अर्मलामा जमिन भासिएर भुवानहरू देखिन थालेका छन्। भुवान हेर्नेको भिड बढेपछि गाउँवासी आतंकित छन्।
सुरुमा गएको यहाँ गइसकेपछि धेरै ठाउँमा जाने सुरु भइसक्यो हैन अब हामीले अनि वैज्ञानिकहरू पनि ल्यायो वैज्ञानिकहरू अनुसार चाहिँ यो पहिलाको ठाउँ दलदल थियो 100 वर्ष अगाडि थियो दलदल थियो अरे धेरै वर्ष अगाडि अनि दलदल हुँदाखेरि यहाँ धेरै बासिन्दाहरू थपिने हुँदै गरे माछासारे थप्ने अब घरसहरू बनाउने जग्गाहरू बनाउने गरेर यो ठाउँलाई ओगटेर रहेछ वैज्ञानिक अनुसारले के भन्छ यो कसरी गएको भन्दा भित्र कमेरो भएर कमेरो बगेको हुनाले यो ठाउँ भूकम्प गएको भन्छ अनि ज्योतिषी अनुसार ज्योतिषीले लाउँदाखेरि ज्योतिषीले नाग मारेको यो नाग त अब कसरी मार्यो भने यहाँ माछा मार्न आउँथ्यो क्या हाम्रो यो ठाउँ छ नि यो सानो कुलो थियो यो सानो कुलो भरि माछा हुन्थ्यो वर्षको एकचोटि धेरै माछा हुन्थ्यो यो ठाउँमा धेरैले सर्प पनि मार्थ्यो त्यो बेलामा सर्प मार्यो 8 नाग मार्यो भन्ने बुझेर मात्रै यो भूकम्पको अब यहाँ पूजा हुन्छ भनेर हामी यहाँ सहयोगको लागि बसेको
पूजा चाहिँ कहिले गर्दै
सबै गएको ग्यास सिलिन्डर मात्रै निकाल्यो अरू सब गयो घर पनि तलै गयो गयो नि त्यो त्यहाँबाट भान्से घर गयो जोरेको थियो क्या अनि टोयलेट थियो त्यो पनि गयो हैन मेरो
कति मान्छेलाई भन्ने त्यस्तो केही
असर त मान्छेलाई परेको छैन एउटा घरलाई परेको त्यो घर चाहिँ अब यतै माथितिर बसिरहेछ जो 17-18 घरबाट चाहिँ छोडेर गएको छ अहिलेसम्म गरेर 47-48 वटा भुन गइसक्यो होला तपाईँले हेर्नुहोस् होइन सानो थियो त्यो सानोमा गर्दा जोड्दै ठुल्ठुलो हुँदै गएको हो अहिलेसम्म 47-48
त्यो हुँदै गरेको छ किन खनाएको नि त माथि नै भएको त पानी जान्छ नि त हैन
माथि गन त नि माथि पानी नगर त यस्तो भाँच्छ यसलाई त पानी खाँदी अनि अल्प बनायो बाटो लाग्यो यो पुल जस्तो बनाएर तल खोला हिँडेर माथि पुल जस्तो बनाएर बाटो लानु पर्ने अनि पुरी अनि यस्तो
अर्मला चाहिँ यो ठाउँ परेन अर्मला यहाँ पऱ्यो जहाँ ठ्याक्कै बाटो पुगेको थियो नि यहीँनिर हो यो बाटो अहिले कन्टिन्यू भएको छ बिचैबाट यो ठाउँ पऱ्यो अनि यहाँको भौगोलिक अवस्था यहाँको भौगोलिक बनोट भनेको चाहिँ कस्तो भने तल्लोपट्टि सिल्ट एकदमै नजमेको माटो छ हैन अनि माथिपट्टि चाहिँ पोरस ग्राभल बेड छ त्यो ग्राभल बेडबाट पानी चाहिँ लगातार तल चाहिँ चुइरहन्छ हैन चुइरिएपछि त्यो तल्लो जुन नरम माटोको बनोट भएको ठाउँ छ त्यहाँ पुग्छ त्यहाँ पुगेपछि त्यही ठाउँमा चाहिँ पानी जम्मा भइरहने र त्यो पानीको उचित निकास नभएको अवस्थामा त्यसले आफ्नै निकास खोज्यो भित्रबाट चाहिँ बाहिर निस्किन खोज्यो काली खोलापट्टि निस्किन खोज्यो त्यो निस्किने क्रममा चाहिँ उसले आफूसँग घुलेको माटो पनि लिएर बाहिर आयो भनौँ न पानीले होइन एकदम सिम्पल भाषामा भन्नुपर्दा अनि त्यो पानीमा यसरी घुलेर माटो आउँदा के भयो तल्लो भागको माटो चाहिँ बगाएर गयो अनि त्यहाँ चाहिँ केही क्याभिटिजहरू बन्न गयो भित्र यो सर्फेसभन्दा तल जमिनभित्रै त्यस्ता क्याभिटिजहरू बन्न गयो पानीले बगाएर गयो माटो त्यसपछि त्योभन्दा माथि भएको ग्राभल चाहिँ के भयो त आफै चाहिँ भिजिरहेको सेचुरेटेड अवस्थामा गरुङको अवस्थामा थियो अनि त्यो चाहिँ के भयो त भन्दाखेरि तपाईँको कोल्याप्स भयो खस्यो होइन त्यो घरमा चाहिँ लायक ठाउँ चाहिँ होइन त्यो तर अब भौगोलिक नक्सामै तोकिएको थियो कि त्यहाँ चाहिँ नि त्यो चाहिँ लो बियरिङ एरिया हो भनेपछि त्यहाँको माटोको भार वहन क्षमता अत्यन्त न्यून छ आतङ्क हुनुपर्ने केही जरुरी छैन आतङ्कित नहुने जनमानसले अहिले आतङ्कित नहुने होइन खास के हो भनेदेखि त्यो कुनै पनि अब आउने दिनहरूमा कुनै पनि त्यो क्षेत्रहरूमा कुनै निर्माणका कार्यहरू गर्नु पर्यो भने त्यहाँ विस्तृत भौगोलिक अध्ययन गरेर मात्र निर्माण कार्यहरू गर्ने
It's a living, breathing thing, the Assumption Parish sinkhole. More than 200 days after it mysteriously began swallowing up the swamp, hundreds of residents are still under a mandatory evacuation order. As Katie Moore reports, the cavern that caused it is still collapsing, leaving Bayou Corn residents wondering if there will ever be an end in sight.
Bayou Corn has always been a peaceful place.
We could drop the boat right there and just take off to go fishing. It was just like a paradise.
But now it feels downright empty. Jamie Weber is gone. A sign on her old home says it's thanks to Texas brine. She had no idea that she was putting her mobile home on land on top of an underground salt dome, one full of caverns used to make brine or salt water, others used to store hazardous, potentially explosive gases. Geophysicists now say the western side of one of the brine caverns is collapsing, filling in from deep in the earth, causing the sinkhole at the surface to expand and contract.
On October 25th, we moved out of our home
She and some of the 350 evacuated Bayou Corn residents packed a joint legislative hearing in Baton Rouge in recent days looking for answers. Many of the ones they keep getting are conflicting and confusing, especially from the state and the company that once mined the collapsing salt cavern, Texas Brine.
Senator, the cause of the sinkhole is the subject of pending litigation. At this point, I don't think it's proper to have any discussion about what the cause is and whether we accept what anyone has said regarding the cause of the sinkhole.
The cavern collapse led to the sinkhole and created a path for the natural gas and the crude oil to come to the surface.
That's Louisiana Department of Natural Resources Secretary Stephen Schutz. He slipped out a back door after the hearing without giving us the chance to ask him any questions.
The sinkhole is constantly changing. It changes every time we go out there.
Gary Hecox is an engineer consulting with DNR about what to do about the sinkhole. It's uncharted territory.
The cavern was 3,400 feet deep, which is deeper than any known cavern failure impacting the surface in the international record.
Meaning nowhere in the world has a brine cavern this large collapsed, and it's not finished yet.
We still have 450 feet to fill. How long is it going to take to fill this up? At 1 foot per day, we're looking at an ongoing event that's still going to run over a year.
Every time it shifts, recently installed seismic monitors pick up tremors like little earthquakes. When it does, big bubbles of natural gas, vegetation, and crude oil are released to the surface. They call it a burp.
It appears that the sand and gravel that's in the bottom of the sinkhole breaks up a large gas bubble into many small bubbles, just like an aquarium, and that is a good thing, because if you get a single bubble up and have an ignition source, you can have a flashover.
An explosion. Instead, those little bubbles are coming out all around the actual sinkhole site, with 20 new sites spotted in the last month. 9 months after the bubble sites first surfaced, Texas Brine started installing vent wells to alleviate the pressure underground. You can see some of them burning in 15 places around Bayou Corn.
We continue to install relief wells as fast as we can, and we'll keep doing so as long as they continue to be effective.
The problems in Bayou Corn aren't just ones you can see, but what you can't see. Take these guide wires, for example. During a recent rain, bubbles started coming up from around them. That's when residents knew the problems weren't just far off in the bayou.
A house acts like a tent, and so if it's migrating up through the soil and it's being caught in the house, it's building up concentrations in the house. And then if it reaches explosive level, then one little spark in the house would set it off.
Nick Romero now has 5 DEQ monitors installed in his house to measure natural gas and other chemicals.
We have had our grandkids, and now we can't. I love the fish, and now I don't want to.
They're struggling not just with the instability underground, but in their lives. Romero and some others haven't evacuated, but Weber did in October.
Once they told us that they wanted to put monitors in our house, and that we'd have to live like lab rats. There was no way for my kids to grow.
And Weber says they feel forgotten, especially by Governor Bobby Jindal, who has yet to visit the sinkhole site or talk about it.
He's promoting plants around the area, chemical plants, and he was in the area and he wouldn't, still to this day does not acknowledge it.
In October and November, Jindal announced 2 chemical plant expansions a few miles from Bayou Corn, one in Geismar and one in Donaldsonville. But in 6 months, no visit to the sinkhole site.
Where is he? Where is Jindal? You know, he's all over the United States, but he can't come 40 minutes south of Baton Rouge and visit.
As these Environmental Action Network photos show, when the sinkhole first appeared, it was just 400 feet in diameter. So far, it's swallowed 9 acres. Scientists say the worst-case scenario is it could swallow 40 acres. Even if it does, many, like Weber, are now just hoping Texas Brine will buy them out so they can move on. Katie Moore, Eyewitness News.
Governor Jindal's press secretary released this statement in response to the question, why hasn't the governor visited Bayou Corn? He said, quote, "We receive regular updates on the situation. Through my orders, agencies have deployed an abundance of resources to the sinkhole area. We ordered GOSEP, Louisiana State Police, DNR, DEQ, and DOTD to Bayou Corn to provide constant oversight, work with parish officials to resolve the situation, and hold Texas Brine accountable for the problems caused by its failed cavern."
2 years. The mandatory evacuation order for people living near that sinkhole out in Assumption Parish is easing for some in the area. The evacuation was ordered in August of 2012 after the sinkhole formed over a salt dome. Gas and oil escaped to the surface, and Texas Brine, which leased the salt dome, is working to contain the area.
So just tell us again about the step here.
Well, what the step here is concrete. The step is sitting on a concrete pad, and where you say the sinkhole is coming through here, this pad here has sank at least half an inch. Here, on the side.
And then this ground radar or whatever he used shows that there's sinkage all over there.
Yeah, and it seems to be going back that way because there is a crack on the wall on the inside.
Look at the bottom of the wall.
Where he just, there's sinkhole there, there.
And where is that relative to the house?
Out front here.
And
yeah.
So here's where the road faces this way.
Yeah, the road is out. Yeah, the road is out here. And it's back toward the house. The guy from the college, he has a whole lot of data printed out from the geoscience department, the geologist. Yeah. I'd be glad to give you his number and name if you.
When did you first notice these sinkholes?
Well, when that hole started getting bigger in there, once I removed the rock and I cleaned off the garage floor, and I noticed where the water was going, it was making a hole and kept getting larger and larger. And as time grew on, that's been maybe within the last 3 months.
Okay, let's go look at that one in the garage again.
This is All Things Considered from NPR News. I'm Melissa Block.
And I'm Robert Siegel. Our next story takes us to South Louisiana and the site of a giant sinkhole. It appeared last year when a salt mine collapsed, creating a series of problems that regulators say they have never seen before. Tremors, oil and gas leaks. Residents were evacuated more than 7 months ago, and as NPR's Debbie Elliott reports, they are losing patience.
Strange things have been happening at Ernie Boudreau's place on Jambalaya Street at Bayou Corn.
My trailer at night, it cracks. You can hear it. The doors pop open by themselves.
The front porch is separating from the trailer, and sometimes he smells oil. All problems that started after the sinkhole opened less than a half-mile from his house.
Come on, boy.
His neighborhood is under a mandatory evacuation, but Boudreau comes back a few days a week to care for his dog.
Diesel. Big puppy. Wouldn't hurt nobody. It's not a good place to be at all, really. But like a lot of us, I mean, you just can't jump up and run. I mean, I can go here and there, but I got that dog. I mean, I raised that dog from a puppy.
Houston-based Texas Brine has been mining salt near the Bayou Corn community for more than 40 years. The company is now paying evacuated residents $875 a week to cover temporary housing costs. But Boudreau, a welder, says he can't find a rental that takes pets the size of Diesel, so he stays with his sister some and then comes home. After 7 months, he wants a more permanent solution.
At $875 a week is hush-hush money. Keep everybody quiet and just let it settle down. I said, I'm not letting this settle down. I see, you're talking about land, home, that we can't come back to, and if you do, it ain't worth nothing.
From Boudreau's backyard, you can see the entrance to Texas Brine. The firm operates several salt wells here in Assumption Parish, injecting water into an underground salt dome to leach out brine. The sodium chloride is used by nearby petrochemical industries that line the Mississippi River between New Orleans and Baton Rouge.
This
this is the sinkhole.
Texas brine spokesman Sonny Cranch looks out over what appears to be a lake surrounded by swampland and a fresh earthen levee. It was all swamp before August 3rd. The morning workers discovered the sinkhole.
The trees were down because they had fallen into the
So they kept, one day they were at work and there were
then
trees
this was
and
just
regular
swamp, and then they came out here and there's nothing, and except debris, all just floating vegetative matter. And as it turned out, there was some liquid hydrocarbon that had risen to the surface.
Crude oil and natural gas bubbling up from below ground. It was a mystery at first, but now authorities say an abandoned salt cavern collapsed, shifting the rock and salt formations deep below, causing the sinkhole above and unleashing hydrocarbons into the groundwater aquifer up to 2 miles from the site.
From time to time, there'll be these little events, little burps, they call them, and you'll get some more material that comes to the surface. Sometimes there's some hydrocarbon involved, other times it's just vegetative matter.
The sinkhole has expanded to 9 acres and is still growing. Monitoring reveals continuing shifting underground and a possible problem at a second cavern. Workers are fusing a pipe to vent off natural gas near the sinkhole. The state has ordered Texas Brine to drill 30 of these natural gas wells around Bayou Corn. Patrick Courage with the Louisiana Department of Natural Resources says the escaping methane poses a danger.
We want to get that out so that you don't have the risk of homes with enclosed spaces having a concentration of gas buildup that could be flammable or explosive.
Courage says Texas Brine had plugged and abandoned this salt mine in 2010 after integrity problems, and state rules at the time did not require any continued monitoring. Now, scientists have discovered the sidewall of the salt cavern collapsed, causing tremors, the sinkhole, and oil and gas leaks. Courage says they've yet to find a roadmap for dealing with this unique set of problems.
When we started looking around, okay, who else has this happened to, the answer came, and we're still looking, is nobody.
That makes it hard to predict what will happen next.
I mean, it's just like an experiment.
Wilma Subra is a technical advisor to the Louisiana Environmental Action Network.
The issue is it's continuing to degrade. So as long as it's degrading, you can't say, well, we've reached the end of degradation, now we can figure out how to remedy.
Bayou Corn resident Nick Romera is losing his patience.
I didn't do anything. I didn't cause this. And you can see the bubbles coming up right there? That's gas. That's gas coming up right there. It's just seeping up slow.
We're standing in Romera's front yard on the edge of a cypress-studded swamp where he spends his mornings watching the wood ducks.
And I'm being driven from the thing that I love the most.
He's a retired postal worker, and his wife Brenda is a nature artist. They've been here more than 20 years.
The damage is done. Our properties were zero, and we can't go buy another house. I mean, we don't have that kind of room in our budget. You know, until we get bought out, we can't. We're in limbo.
Nick Romero says after 7 months, nothing is getting better. He wants Texas Brine to ante up.
So man has played around, stuck his hands where he shouldn't have, and Mother Nature says, you know, it's time for y'all to leave. You know, and they're responsible for causing it, and so it's time for them to pay up.
Texas Brine spokesman Sonny Cranch says the company will work with individual families to reach a fair settlement.
You know, we want resolution of this, and we really, truly appreciate the emotional stress this has caused for so many of these people in the Bayou Corn area.
Some residents have sued Texas Brine, and Louisiana Governor Bobby Jindal is demanding damages for all of the 350 residents near the sinkhole. He also says the company owes the state more than $8 million for its response to the crisis.
They're the ones that are the responsible party. They've caused this damage, and certainly we'll be aggressive in making sure that they pay their bills, whether it's to the state or whether it's to the folks, local government, or whether it's the folks they buy out.
Back on Jambalaya Street, Ernie Boudreau wants the buyout, but isn't sure where he'll go from Bayou Corn.
We born and raised here. It ain't like I'm gonna say, well, I'm moving to Baton Rouge because I'm not a city person. You know, I'm born in the swamp. That's why in the bayous, they ain't got a bayou. I'm out of place. You know, I can't go to no city. But where you gonna go? That's the thing.
Debbie Elliott.
News now. More activity reported out at that massive sinkhole in Assumption Parish. The sinkhole swallowed 6 cypress trees yesterday and then later released gas into the air. You're looking at similar activity there from last August, which was caught on camera. Yesterday's activity comes 2 weeks, though, after investigators say the sinkhole seemed to be stabilizing.
It's starting to landslide. Starting to landslide right now. Hey! was the craziest thing I've ever seen in my life. Wow. Not gonna lie, my heart's racing. Thought I was going with it. Wow. Oh, fuck, my legs are shaking. Oh, it's not a fucking derailment, but it looks like I got overtime hours for next pay. Oh my god, my legs are shaking. We just saved a couple lives, I think, being here just by chance. Good job, Tommy Miller. Fully up, boys, eh? And pull through again. And motherfuckers. Well, my crew's on that side, and I'm pretty sure I'm not allowed walking over this track right now. I think it's 3:12. Tires are starting to drop there. I can feel the tires moving underneath me, so I guess I'm going to move.
Water told 22 News a 54-inch sewer pipe broke, causing the sidewalk to cave in. The ground was soft due to recent rain. The area around the sinkhole, which is located near the corner of Resnick Boulevard and Beach Street, needs to be stabilized before crews can begin work. The incident comes at a very inconvenient time for city workers as crews are busy making preparations for this weekend's St. Patrick's Parade and the road race.
I don't know if they're going to get that fixed by Sunday. I don't think so.
Well, the hole is covered for now and should no longer pose any danger to the public or the parade.
Milwaukee police are on the scene of a sinkhole that's developing on Milwaukee's south side. It's on South 12th Street between Cleveland and Harrison. And as you can see, it's about the size of a car parking space. They've got orange cones protecting it until the Department of Public Works can get here and take care of it and repair it. We're told by our crews on the ground there that it's about a foot deep that has sunk so far. Above the scene in News Chopper 12, Matt Salemi for WISN.com.
Golfer is lucky to be alive today after being swallowed by a sinkhole. I mean, we have a sinkhole story like every couple of days, right? He was in the middle of a golf match and he literally disappeared. 43-year-old Mark Mahal fell 18 feet. 18 is the magic number, I guess, on the golf course, right? And it just gave way beneath him. His only injury was a dislocated shoulder. It really could have been much worse for this guy.
It was dark. Finally, my eyes got used to the light. I looked around. It was sort of like a cave, you know. There was room in there. It wasn't confined, which was nice. But looking down, it looked like it was going to go down further. You know, it looked like I wasn't at the bottom.
It's like a nightmare that you're falling and falling. This guy lived it, as we've seen other people do in the past few weeks, right? Fox St. Louis reporter Betsy Bruce has an in-depth look at how this happened.
One golfer thought his friend Mark Myhall had stumbled and fallen down the hill. He vanished so quickly. A second, just 15 feet away, turned and saw no sign of his friend. It was almost as if the earth had swallowed Mark and closed over the hole.
I'm Randall Orndorff, a geologist with the U.S. Geological Survey.
Lately, there have been quite a few sinkholes that have developed across the United States. One recently has taken a life. I'd like to take a moment just to talk about what sinkholes are and where they occur. Well, sinkholes generally occur in what we call karst terrains. And karst terrains are basically areas that are underlain by soluble rock. Rocks that can dissolve, like limestone, gypsum, and salt. Rainwater naturally is acidic. When it gets underground into these rocks, over long periods of times, hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands of years, the rocks will dissolve and will leave caverns and voids underground. As these voids grow upward, the soil on top can no longer sustain itself, and we get these catastrophic collapses. Now, about 20% of the United States is underlain by this karst terrain. Areas such as Florida, almost the entire state is under limestone, but there are many other areas. Just about every state has some sort of soluble rock.
Watch out for that dust. That could be asbestos and shit.
I work for Reuters News Service. I've occasionally worked with GS. Okay.
A 17-foot deep sinkhole opened up in Holyoke right next to the St. Patrick's Parade route. Contractors with United...
Now, karst sinkholes, there's also other types of sinkholes that are man-induced. Cities, urban areas are underlain by pipelines, by sewer lines, water mains, and things like that are basically man-made caves. So anytime you have a void underground, just like the natural cave system, you have the potential for collapse. As our aging infrastructure deteriorates, we're finding that cracks in these sewer lines and water mains will cause the soil to leak down into those, also causing collapse. Now, at the U.S. Geological Survey, one of our big tools in trying to understand where sinkholes occur are geologic maps. By mapping the geology of an area, we can determine where the limestones, the salt or gypsum, these soluble rocks are, both at the surface and the subsurface. And that's a first step in understanding what areas are at risk. And risk is the first thing we need to look at before we can actually look at individual areas. For more information on sinkholes, on geologic maps, and other natural hazards, please visit usgs.gov.